Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So this morning, the union budget of this upcoming financial year was presented by the finance minister in parliament. And in this video, we'll be looking at everything that's new in 2022. We'll begin with some highlights of this year's budget. So the paperless budget trend, which was initiated last year, continued this year. So rather than carrying large briefcases that contain the budget documents, the entire budget PDF is stored on a single tablet. And after the presentation, the budget PDF will be published on a union budget app, which would make it accessible to ministers, government authorities, policymakers, and the general public. And just like last year, the budget is based on 4 core pillars. And this year's pillars are inclusive development, which means that diverse sections of society should equitably grow and develop. And ultimately, the entire nation as a whole should develop. So development should never be confined to a few elite classes. Every class, scheduled castes, scheduled tribes, middle classes, and elite classes should equitably grow. And this involves equitable distribution of wealth. We also have productivity enhancement. So the production or the manufacturing capacity of indigenous industries should increase. And next we have climate action and energy transition. So India is pressing towards funding green infrastructure. And lastly, we have health and well-being, which is essential in this post-pandemic period. Every year, the budget has a theme. Last year's theme was reviving the economy after the harsh pandemic. And this year's theme is Amrit Kaal, which is a roadmap from India at 75 to India at 100. So India at 75 is now. After 75 years of independence, we have reached this stage of socioeconomic development. And in the next 25-year time frame, we have to improve our socioeconomic development and increase social well-being for all walks of life. So we have to ensure that every household, especially rural households, have to have a tap water connection. Every household has to have a gas connection, an LPG connection. Government schools should improve. Internet commodities should be democratized. And of course, we have to achieve our sustainable development goals. So that's this year's theme, and the budget is also steering towards this roadmap for socioeconomic development in this 25-year time frame. So here are some key takeaways from this year's budget. We'll begin with sovereign green bonds. So to finance climate action infrastructure and green infrastructure, the government will soon issue green bonds. And governments usually issue bonds when they need to urgently procure funds, or they need urgent cash. And so they issue bonds which can be purchased by the general public. And once the general public purchases the bonds, the government has to repay the face value once the bond attains maturity, along with periodic interest. So bonds are an easy method for governments to quickly get cash in their hand for public expenditure purposes. And so soon the RBI will issue these green bonds to finance and fund climate action infrastructure. But what is climate action infrastructure? Well, it could be financing solar energy products, finding catchment areas for ethanol blending, biofuels, methane production, and ultimately reducing our dependence on conventional energy sources and moving towards a green, eco-friendly, sustainable future. 1,400 crores has been allocated in this year's budget towards river interlinking projects. So river interlinking projects involve a man-made construction of reservoirs and canals which connect 2 major river systems. And the benefits of these projects are wide-ranging. They improve irrigation facilities and reduce the dependence on rainfall in agricultural sectors. They also create a basin for these two rivers. So if one system is flooding, this water can transfer to the system that's prone to droughts. And so it's mediating a relationship between the water scarce river and the flooded river. And it's preventing either a flood or a drought. It's also creating unskilled labor because we have to construct these canals and reservoirs. So these are just a few benefits of river interlinking projects. And this year, the budget has allocated 1,400 crores to commission 5 new projects. Next, we have a push towards production-linked incentives. So a PLI scheme is usually initiated to incentivize production in indigenous manufacturing units. And it's usually targeted towards a certain niche of products. So this year, since we're pushing towards climate action infrastructure, any indigenous manufacturing unit or indigenous industry which manufactures solar cells and modules. So we need to obviously strive towards our goal of having 400 gigawatts of installed capacity in the very near future. And so to achieve this, we need to obviously proliferate construction of solar panels and need solar cells and modules for this. So any MSME that produces manufacturing solar cells and modules will receive an incentive. And the way this incentive works is it's usually a percentage of the net sales of this industry. So 24,000 crores have been allocated for production-linked incentive schemes, and the percentage of incentives could range anywhere between 5% to even 21%. Next, we have e-passports. So e-passports will serve the same purpose as a normal passport, which is to grant access across the sovereignty of another country. But these new passports will be embedded with microchips, which are connected to a database that has complete details, a comprehensive outlook of your biometrics, your background check, and an overall view that you're a safe person. And so it'll ease the process of overseas transit, and it'll also improve security. And since these e-passports are connected to a database and they're strongly secured, it'll be impossible to create counterfeit passports or to create a new identity or commit identity theft. These e-passports will be beneficial towards preventing that. And it will also prevent leakage of data. And lastly, we have PM Gati Shakti, which is essentially the infrastructure master plan of this year's budget. So this year's budget is really making a strong push towards infrastructural development, especially in the transportation sector. So PM Gati Shakti is another roadmap from India at 75 to India at 100. And as a part of this scheme, we're trying to establish 400 Vande Bharat trains and 100 cargo terminals. So these are all green transport, and it's centered around 7 engines, which are road transport, rail transport, airports, seaports. And these 7 engines are the driving force of the PM Gati Shakti. So as a part of this scheme, as of now, we have announced 400 new electric trains, which are these Vande Bharat trains that you can see on the bottom left. And we're also establishing 100 new cargo terminals. And a cargo terminal is essentially a storage unit for airports or seaports. So PM Gati Shakti is the ultimatum, if you will, of this year's budget. And the long-term implications of this scheme could transform India. So obviously I didn't mention all the takeaways from this year's budget, such as the emergency credit line scheme, or telemedical facilities for mental health issues, or the new digital rupee, which is India's national cryptocurrency. So there's a lot more takeaways which will be explained in another video which will be coming soon. And thank you so much for watching this video. As always, I hope you had a great learning experience. And until the next video, this is Nishal Tube signing off.